Hey everybody, Necroxis here, and if you saw my Twitter yesterday, you should know what this video is going to be talking about. It is something that we found out yesterday, once again, like the capital changes, not by an official announcement, but by an off-comment on Twitter that was made to somebody asking what I thought was an innocuous question. And today, I'm going to be talking about, from the video title or my Twitter, the change, or I guess the removal, it's not a change, they're removing it, the removal of Tanaan Jungle from the launch of Warlords of Draenor. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about, and then I'll explain why I have reached my limit of patience with Blizzard. They have finally spent the last amount of goodwill that they had built up with me over 15 years. They wasted all of that. I'm finally done giving them a break. So let me explain. Tanaan Jungle at BlizzCon. It is the zone where Hellfire Peninsula is in Burning Crusade, in Outland. It is the zone that becomes Hellfire Peninsula, Tanaan Jungle. If you watch my channel, you saw the introduction to Warlords of Draenor, which actually takes place in Tanaan Jungle. Now, at BlizzCon, Tanaan Jungle was listed as an endgame zone. It was listed at level 99 and 100. I want to point that out because later I'm going to talk about people who are defending this bullshit. It was listed at BlizzCon as level 99 through 100, so it was not just a level 100 zone. Very much like the Dreadwaste is listed as, what, I believe 88 through 90, so in the exact same vein. So, at BlizzCon, Blizzard, they were like, here's the expansion, and then they showed us the map, and they were like, here's Tanaan Jungle, and here's Talador, and Shadowmoon Valley, and Frostfire Ridge, and Nagrand, and Spires of Iraq. So, now, BlizzCon ended. So they showed it off at BlizzCon. One other thing I should point out, they talked about the Fields of Farallon. It's where Netherstorm is right now if you go to Outland. But in Warlords of Draenor, it's the Fields of Farallon. In the lore, it's the Fields of Farallon. It's like this island place right where Netherstorm would be before the world exploded. And when they talked about Fields of Farallon, they said, look, we're planning on making Fields of Farallon future patch content. That was the only mention of future patch content at BlizzCon. They did not, and I repeat explicitly, they did not once say that Tanaan Jungle would ever be future patch content, and they presented it as being launching with Warlords of Draenor and being part of the 6.0 storyline. It was going to be level 99 through 100. That was at BlizzCon. That was in November. What's the date when I'm making this video? July 25th. So, 7 months later, we find out on Twitter when someone is just talking to Lore, who is the community manager, one of them, at BlizzCon. Somebody asked, curious, this is on Twitter, by the way, and once again, I'll link all these tweets in the comments below so you can go read them yourself. Someone asked, curious, seems like Tanaan, Frostfire, Shadowmoon Valley are 90 through 92, Gorgrond is 92 to 94, Talador is 94, the Spires of Iraq and Nagrand, or Spires of Iraq are 96 to 98, and Nagrand is 98 to 100. And then he says, so is there going to be more of Tanaan after the initial introduction somewhere in there? And Lore said, and I quote, those level ranges are correct. The rest of Tanaan will be in a content patch. It is the Iron Horde's primary seat of power. And as should have happened, what happened was the community exploded, because this was the first indication that they were removing Tanaan Jungle from the launch of Warlords of Draenor and deciding instead to put it in patch content. May I repeat, we have not been told this. We were not hinted at this. This was never implied. There was given no indication that this was going to happen before this tweet. So naturally, what happens next is a flood of responses to Lore asking, like, what the fuck is going on? Somebody asked, you told us that the faction hubs were moving to Asheran to be near the Iron Horde in Tanaan. Pointless when you can't actually enter it. Lore said, we're going to attack them in Tanaan, and we just should probably build up an army first. Somebody else said, the first tweet seems to be deleted, but it was something about the fact that this expansion seems to be going to hell because Tanaan has been pushed back. Lore says, Tanaan hasn't been pushed back. The plan was always to go through the Dark Portal, escape, and come back later and finish the job. And so then he's basically trying to explain what he said. I probably think he realized, oh shit, I just kind of confirmed something that nobody knew in the community. So somebody said, maybe you should communicate these decisions when they are made. And this is the best part. This tweet itself is the best one. Where is it on my list of tweets that I'm looking at right here? I just lost it. Somebody said, when were these decisions made, and maybe you should have communicated them when they were. He said, I believe this one was made prior to BlizzCon. Either way, point taken, we need to do better. So, apparently, they knew they were going to do this prior to BlizzCon, but they still talked about it. They showed off the map at BlizzCon. They showed off the level 99 through 100. Confirmation, in my mind, it's a fucking confirmation if you show off the goddamn map and you say, here's the leveling progress, and then you show Tanaan Jungle as 99 through 100. The confirmation at BlizzCon. They led everybody to believe at BlizzCon that this was going to be part of the launch, but apparently, even before BlizzCon, they had already known it was going to be future patch content, which means that they either blatantly lied to us or they are so inept at doing their job that this was a giant oversight that they just did not catch. Either way, it doesn't look very good for Blizzard. So, once again, he reaffirms this is not a new decision. This was perhaps not communicated clearly, or fucking at all, by the way. He said, we haven't talked much about content patches post 6.0. And he said, which is entirely because we're primarily focused on 6.0 at the moment. So, two more tweets, and then we're done, and I'll explain my pretty obvious rage about this. Somebody asked, so with Tanaan being pushed back, what is the level 100 content then? Aside from 5s, raids, and PvP, he said there's level 100 content in almost all of the zones. Tanaan as a patch content has always been the plan. That is their tweet. Tanaan as patch content has always been the plan. So, okay. There we go. That's actually the last one. The second, on my list, it was a repeated tweet. So, this to me sounds like they changed their mind very recently, and they're pretending that they're not. And the reason why I think this is because it seems like they are rushing their asses to get Warlords of Draenor out the door before the end of the year. Because if they would launch Warlords of Draenor in 2015, it would utterly destroy the subscription base of World of Warcraft. Just think of how much it's fallen now, and I will get into a point later on when I talk about their bullshit, skeevy, shifty tactics that they're trying to use to keep their subscription numbers. But could you just imagine if Warlords of Draenor did not come out this year, and we had Siege of Orgrimmar for a year and a half, almost 2 years? The game would probably not be dead. It would be very close to dying. So, I have reached my limit with Blizzard. I have been a fucking adamant, loyal fan, defender, fanboy, white knight of Blizzard for 15 years. The very first Blizzard game I played was Rock and Roll Racing on the Sega Genesis. And I was young, so I can't say that I fell in love with the company because I didn't fucking even realize who the company was. But that's the first game that I played. And then I played Warcraft 2. And then I played Warcraft 3. And then I played Diablo. And then I played Diablo 2. And then I played StarCraft. And then I played Warcraft 3. And then I played StarCraft 2. And then I played Diablo 2. And of course, World of Warcraft in there. I've been playing WoW since the game has been fucking released. So, pretty much 99% of Blizzard's games I have been playing, I have played, I am playing, I am an ardent fan of. And all the way up until probably Mists of Pandaria, they've been just building goodwill with me as a company. I have relatively pretty much not disagreed with them on anything major. I would defend them whenever I thought people were being unfair. I would give them the benefit of doubt. I would believe what they said. It was my favorite company. It was the #1 company that I thought made video games. And they ruined it. Through various decisions that have to do with things like Diablo 3 having no offline mode, or, you know, I have issues with Hearthstone, but I think it's just my personal opinion, and I don't really fault Blizzard with it, but I have issues with Hearthstone. The artifact system with Heroes of the Storm that they just released. The end of Mists of Pandaria, patches 5.3 and 5.4. Warlords of Draenor seeming like an entire filler expansion. The story being totally fucking asinine and being just basically a time-traveling expansion so that we can waste 4 more years for them to develop the actual next expansion, which is going to be whatever it's going to be. Random various decisions that they've made for Warlords of Draenor, like no flying, the capital changes, which I will say in this video, I have now totally changed my opinion about with this news. I am totally on the side of people who think that Blizzard's in the wrong. I take back every single thing that I said defending Blizzard, even though I think the case that I made could have been valid if I believed Blizzard was trying to be legitimate, but I don't think they are anymore. So I think that ties into the whole they're trying to rush out the expansion. I take that back, and I join the community who says it's fucking bullshit. Changes like this, removing Tanaan jungle, no flying, did I mention that already? I think I did. So all of that goodwill that they built up over 15 years, they drained very fast. And they did so because, not even because they made changes that I disagree with, because they have done that before in the past. When Mists of Pandaria first came out, and I still actually believe this, I don't think the Warlock changes they made to the class that I play the most, it's my main, I don't think that they were good. I still don't think that they were good. I still had more fun playing a Destruction Warlock in Cataclysm than I do right now. But I realized, or at least back then, I realized that, you know, it was just a difference of opinion and they wanted to go somewhere else with it. So the difference now is, and this is kind of a little bit of rambly because I don't have a script in front of me, I'm just kind of going off the cuff, just stream of consciousness basically. The difference now is I've reached a point, and I know for a fact I've specifically said this in a video, and I'm trying to remember which one it was, but I can't. It was a vlog, and I remember saying something almost identical to this. I said something to the effect of, when you keep making decisions that are perceived as skeevy or shifty or money-grubbing or controversial, but you give no indication to the community or your fan base until you actually are making the change, or if the fan base accidentally finds out or randomly finds out. Basically, if you're making a big change and you haven't officially announced it and it's just found out about, if you keep doing stuff like that, the opinion of your company in the eyes of your fan base gets lower and lower and lower and lower until it reaches a point that people who were once ardent fans of your company think that almost every change you make now is because you are trying to either make money, rush content out the door, or you are trying to shortcut what you're making because you realize that some kind of mismanagement went on and you need to get your game out as fast as possible. And that is where I now am. In the span of 2 years, and you can witness this if you have been following me on YouTube for, I would say, a year or more, you will see me make this actual change. It's documented between various vlogs, things that I just say when I'm doing World of Warcraft videos, lore opinion section videos, or opinion sections in lore videos. You will see me making this gradual change. And my neighbor is mowing their lawn. But you will see me make this gradual change from someone who loved Blizzard as a company, someone who, like I said earlier, was my favorite company, to a company that I think is barely even better now than EA. And that is probably the most scathing thing I could say about Blizzard. And let me just say, before I continue, because I can already hear the clitter-clattering of people making their comments, that I don't have a problem with companies trying to make money. Because if a company doesn't make money, naturally, Econ 101, if a company doesn't make money, then they can't continue as a company. They can't continue making games that we love and like to play. But before I would say Warlords of Draenor, maybe the end of Mists of Pandaria, before that, I always felt like Blizzard was really good at balancing making money and making a very high quality product. And that is the reason why Blizzard was so popular, has become so popular, why it has garnered such goodwill with the community. Because no matter what they made, and they've hit some bumps along the road, they've had things like, some people didn't like StarCraft 2, like ardent players of StarCraft 1 were kind of bummed on StarCraft 2 for a while, or, the issues with, the always online mode with Diablo 3. But, it always felt like they were really good at balancing making money and making a good product, because when they made a good product, they would make money. It seems like now, to me, and this is directly because of what I just talked about my opinion being lower and lower and lower and lower of the company, it seems like now they aren't making a high-quality product. They are making a product that will make them money quickly, regardless of the actual quality. Now let me segue into people defending Blizzard. And the first group I'll start with is people saying, well, you can't take what they've been saying at BlizzCon as concrete evidence because it's at BlizzCon. And ironically enough, I was one of those people in the Capital Change video who said this exact same thing. But, as I have just said, I am reneging on everything I said in that video. I no longer believe it. I no longer support it. I no longer believe Blizzard should get the benefit of the doubt. So, basically, I'm going to say, even if I did, by the way, changing the location of NPCs and portals is entirely different than removing an entire zone from an expansion. So, to those people who are defending Blizzard by using the excuse of, oh, it's at BlizzCon, you can't take it seriously. If we can't even take a fucking leveling map at BlizzCon as at least semi-concrete evidence of that's how they're going to craft the expansion, then what the fuck is the point of BlizzCon? If they're just going to sit there and show us a bunch of bullshit and we can't take any of it seriously, not 1%, if we can't take any of it as even semi-concrete evidence, then what's the point of having the conference? Because if the product is going to be 100% different than what they make at BlizzCon, and side note, I'm not saying that it is, but if we're going to use this argument, then it makes logical sense that we would end up at this point. If Blizzard's going to show us a bunch of bullshit at BlizzCon, and then make a product that's 100% different, then what the fuck is the point of showing us what they showed us at BlizzCon in the first place? It is absolutely ridiculous to say you can't take a map showing all of the different zones and the leveling progression path as at least semi-concrete evidence of how to craft the expansion, how they're going to do it. Sorry, I had a brain fart. If we can't even take the leveling map that Blizzard showed us at BlizzCon, which, by the way, all of the other zones have followed. They're still exactly the same, but they just plucked out Tanaan Jungle and said, oh, we're not doing that anymore at launch content. It'll be back at a patch. If we can't take even that, then I personally don't even think there should be a BlizzCon anymore. Maybe they should take the money that they're losing at BlizzCon, because even though BlizzCon is a huge hype fest, they lose money on it every single year. They never come out in the black. They always come out in the red when they do BlizzCon. Maybe they should take that money and use it to develop their fucking game a little bit faster, because this is absolutely ridiculous. So, that's the first defense that I think is bullshit. The second defense, and the one that makes me more angry than I am already, is people trying to justify it using the story. And Lore is actually doing that, kind of. He's implying that the story is why they're doing it. And if you remember, the story is also the scapegoat that they used for the capital change that I defended, and now I think is bullshit. Don't fucking abuse the story, the thing that I love, to excuse your fucking mismanagement of the expansion
and having to deliver less content because you're trying to get it out the door as fast as possible. Don't abuse the story as a scapegoat for that shit. Don't say Tanaan Jungle is the seat of the Horde power, and therefore that is why it's coming out in patch content instead of actual launch content. Because you know what? Every fucking expansion before this shows that that line of reasoning is bullshit. Even in vanilla. Let's take a look at the bosses, or the final raid bosses in vanilla. Let's start with Molten Core. Molten Core is in Black Rock Mountain, which is in Burning Steppes, as well as Searing Gorge. Burning Steppes was level 58, and it technically wasn't endgame because endgame was 60, but it was as close to endgame as you could get without being legitimately endgame. Burning Steppes was still in the game, and even though it was Ragnaros' seat of power, there were still entire quest chains that you did in Burning Steppes involving Ragnaros. We can also throw Nefarian in there with Blackwing Lair. You also do quests about him and them in the Burning Steppes. Now, let's move to Silithus. Silithus might be the only place where you might find an actual defense that would hold up, but I don't even think so, because technically it's true that there weren't many things in Silithus before they released the Encourage patch. But there was stuff there. There were bases, there were NPCs, there were a few quests that alluded to the AQ story that was coming down the pipe. That was the seat of power of AQ, and you did stuff with it before that actual patch. What am I missing? Naxxramas might be the only one because they didn't introduce a zone for Naxxramas. They introduced a ziggurat that was flying around. Let's look at Burning Crusade. Burning Crusade, you arguably have two zones, Netherstorm and Shadowmoon Valley. Netherstorm, the seat of power for Kael'thas. Shadowmoon Valley, the seat of power for Illidan. In both of those zones, there are extensive storylines before Black Temple was even opened, before it was even able to be gone into. There was an extensive storyline in that zone revolving Illidan, his power, his armies, dismantling it, trying to undermine him. Technically, Tempest Keep launched with Burning Crusade, but you can still argue the same thing. There were extensive storylines in those zones. Now, let's move on to Wrath of the Lich King. The final boss of Wrath of the Lich King. The Lich King. Where was he at? Where was he at? He was in Icecrown, wasn't he? And before 3.3 came out, there were quests in Icecrown, weren't there? If I recall correctly, there were major quests in Icecrown before 3.3 came out. There were an entire zone's fucking story in Icecrown before 3.3 came out. And guess what it had to deal with? It had to deal with the Horde and the Alliance and the Argent Crusade and the Knights of the Ebon Blade attacking the Scourge's seat of power, which is exactly the same bullshit excuse they're trying to pull with the Iron Horde. And don't fucking tell me that the Scourge is not as dangerous as the Iron Horde, because that's bullshit. That's bullshit. The Scourge, outside of the Legion, has always been presented as one of the most numerous forces, armies, whatever you want to call it, that has ever been in any of this lore. I guess you could kind of count the Old Gods too, but they're more manipulative, so I personally wouldn't, but you could if you wanted. But the Scourge is definitely more dangerous, or was, than the Iron Horde. So don't say that you can remove Tanaan Jungle when I can just say, hey, we were in Icecrown before 3.3 even came out. You can even make, excuse me, you can even make this argument with Cataclysm. And at the very least, the first raid instance, which is the, what was it called? Bastion of Twilight or Twilight Bastion. They changed the names in the beta and I can't remember. But Twilight Highlands, you did a whole quest there, even though it was the seat of Cho'Gath's power before we actually attacked it. But that was fine. The only reason Mists of Pandaria doesn't work is because Garrosh didn't become the actual expansion villain until 5.3. And guess what? The second that he did, we were in the Barrens, and we were in Durotar. So don't sit there and scapegoat the fucking story to say, because it's the seat of power, they're in Tanaan, that it has to be in a future patch content. At the very least, there should be stuff there. Don't give me this bullshit. And by the way, it now makes sense why they don't have flying in the game. Because if there was flying in the game, people would actually be able to fly to Tanaan and see that there's nothing there. Because right now in the beta, when you are in Shadow Moon Valley as an alliance, and you fly anywhere north of that zone, you fly right over Tanaan Jungle. There aren't buildings. There are barely textures. There are no NPCs. There are very huts, a small amount of huts here and there, but generally sometimes the grass isn't even in the game yet. It's just like white ground. So they really better make a wide berth when they release this expansion, because you're going to see a whole bunch of nothing if you fly right over Tanaan Jungle. So it might seem like that I'm happy that I'm upset at this, but I'm not. Because I used to really love Blizzard, and I just am so frustrated with the shit that they've been doing lately. And I don't know what has happened there. I hope that at some point, maybe after Warlords is over, we get like a leaked story from someone inside Blizzard that explained what the fuck happened during this development of this expansion, because it seems like they are mismanaging a lot of stuff there. They changed the capital to a place that looks almost very similar to the garrison buildings. I'm not going to say copy-paste from Crassoing Wild, because they're not. I mean, they're taking garrison buildings and either making them exactly the same and putting them in Ashman, or they're blowing them up or adding little doodads here and there. They're basically taking garrison buildings, and that's the new capital. They did that. They're removing Tanaan Jungle. They've flat out said from BlizzCon that all of the models might not even be in the game yet, in the game when it launches, the new models. What the fuck are they spending all of their time on? Could it be they're changing the classes every expansion? Maybe that should be a secondary thing. Maybe you should get all of the features you want done for the expansion first, and then tweak the classes like you do every single expansion. Sometimes for the better, which I would say from vanilla compared to now, every class plays better. Cataclysm to Mesa Pandaria for Warlocks, I don't agree. But from vanilla to now, generally every class plays better. But don't sit there and try and say, oh, well, we have to tweak the classes every expansion. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can make all the main features first and then tweak the classes for the expansion. But I'm getting off topic. What I want to end with is something else that's not technically related to this, but I think it is. It's the announcement, and I think this is a very good example of what I was talking about at the very beginning of this video when I talked about the shady business practices that they're doing with trying to keep subs before Warlords comes out. For those of you who is not keeping up on World of Warcraft news, and I do because I'm a loser and I play WoW a lot, Blizzard came out and said that if you want to get the Horde Chopper, which was the winner of the Alliance and Horde Chopper vote off, I guess, if you want to get the Horde Chopper, you have to log in between now and September 30th. And when I first heard this, and I hope other people did this too, they thought to themselves, that is a very random or arbitrary date that they set. And at this point, I don't think Warlords is going to be out before then, but even if it was, that's still a very random date to set. Between now and September 30th. But if you think about it, and if you know a couple certain things about the quarters that businesses use, December 30th is the end of the third quarter. And if you are forced to have to, if not forced, but if you have to log in to get this mount between now and September 30th, what do you have to do in order to log into the game? You have to buy a subscription. So you have to, in order to get a mount that is supposed to be for the anniversary, the 10th anniversary of World of Warcraft, which isn't September 30th. That's not the anniversary. The anniversary is in, what? Let's do some live searching. I believe it's in November. That's why that's part of the reason why they release stuff that late. World of Warcraft. Yeah, November. In North America, November 23rd. So the expansion, or the anniversary is not in September. It's not even in October. So why would they say log in now and September 30th? Could it possibly be that because they plan on releasing the expansion in quarter 4, they want to try and stem the loss of subscriptions in quarter 3 by forcing people to do this? That is what I believe. And if that is not the reason, I I would love for someone to give me a reason that would make sense besides this. Because if they aren't doing this specifically to try and pad the sub numbers to make the losses not seem as bad for their investors or for their public image or for whatever else, if that is what they're trying to do, if that's not the reason, I can't think of a single other reason. Because September 30th, if you ignore the fact that it's the end of quarter 3, it is nothing but an arbitrary date. Not even when the expansion will probably be out. Not even when the anniversary is. The anniversary is not till 2 months after that. It's a shady business practice. This is what I'm talking about. And once again, it's not a problem. It's a smart move on their end. From a business perspective, it's smart to do this. But the perception of this kind of act, when all of this other bullshit has been going on, is just that this company is money grubbing. They're trying to pad their subscription numbers. They're trying to take advantage of their player base. And that's the biggest point. They are trying to take advantage of their player base. And you can do that with good business practices, and that's totally fine. But I wouldn't even call it taking advantage of. It's your fan base rewarding you for a good game versus you doing a very shifty thing that probably has very little or zero actual programming time, and it's just an arbitrary date that you set that you later on go back and check and then give people the mount to whether or not they log in. There's a difference between making a good product and being rewarded for that and pulling this kind of bullshit. Do you understand? Does that make sense? Once again, before I end this video, I would love to hear another reason why this whole subscription thing for this mount, why would they be doing it till September 30th? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's just I'm over Blizzard. I'm over it. At this point, I don't even know if I'm going to be getting Warlords of Draenor because I don't even like what they're doing with the story. I don't like what they're doing with the story. The garrisons are pretty cool, but it's definitely not something that would make me buy an entire expansion. I'm subscribed to the game, but I didn't pay for it. Someone else paid for it for me, and if they wouldn't have, I wouldn't be subscribed until Warlords came out, if I was even buying it. So that's the end of this rambly video. This might be the ramblingest video I've ever actually made, but my point is Blizzard is really screwing the pooch with their community here. And I have run out of patience. I have run out of patience not only for the company, but for people defending this kind of bullshit and this whole idea of they didn't technically promise this at BlizzCon, so you can't technically be upset about it. Fuck you. Yes, I can. And I think people being upset about it is totally valid. I think even more valid than the capital change. Because like I said, a zone being removed and replaced as patch content later on is a total different thing than changing where NPCs are and where portals are to the capitals, or to Stormwind and Orgrimmar. So, let me know what you guys think about this mess in the comments below. Let me know if you think I'm being unfair about something. Let me know if you have heard some piece of information that I haven't reported here that might change my opinion. Also, let me know what you think about the theory I have about the Horde Chopper, because I can't think of another reason why it wouldn't be what I believe it is. So, thanks again, guys. Continue watching for more Warlords of Draenor beta content, because I'm still in the beta, so I'm still going to be making videos about it. But, yeah. Thanks again, guys, for watching this, 40-minute mess. And I'll see you next time. Farewell.